The tearful goodbye made international news, and Cindy Garcia is here. And how will we all get around in 10 or 20 years? A glimpse into the future in our backyard. Today is Sunday, January 28, 2018, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. Great to have you with us this morning. The news of the week was dominated by one of the worst, most difficult to comprehend stories that I've seen in my career in journalism. We knew Dr. Larry Nassar was headed to prison, most likely for the rest of his life. We knew his years of abusive, twisted behavior had been deplorable. I suppose we thought we knew a lot about the case. But the last 2 weeks and the decision of Judge Rosemary Aquilina to allow any and all of his victims to have their say at his sentencing laid bare the truth of it all. And it did it in a way that hashtags and cursory secondhand accounts never could. It was an astonishing parade of young women standing up to be heard. You have to believe many of them needed to finally say out loud what had been so long ignored or brushed aside. The accounting, however, is still being decided. MSU President Luanna Simon stepped down as many felt she must. But what now for MSU, for USA Gymnastics, for the U.S. Olympic Committee? Nassar's road is decided. The rest, not yet. Also this week, the continued battle over immigration remained as volatile as ever. And in a city of such robust immigrant life, Detroit, of course, figures into the story. This video of the Garcia family of Lincoln Park being torn apart as Jorge Garcia, one of the so-called dreamers, was sent to Mexico, a place he hasn't seen in about 30 years. Is there no way to find an answer on DACA? Even conservatives like Bill Kristol remarked, surely this should not be happening. Cindy Garcia is here this morning to talk about what has happened to her family. And a little later, we can't seem to come to an agreement on regional transit. Some have wondered, is it because we're not thinking far enough into the future? We're still in our self-driven cars and trucks for a while, no doubt, but what about mass transit? How far away is the future? It's all today on Flashpoint. This week, President Trump will give his State of the Union address in Washington. It's not unusual for a president to invite guests to be there, generally supporters of his policies. There will be one guest in attendance on Tuesday night, not of the president's, but of Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, and that guest is not all that pleased with President Trump's immigration policies. That guest is Cindy Garcia, who is my guest now on Flashpoint. Cindy, thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me on.
By now, I think a lot of people have seen the video that has now gone viral of really watching your family break up, kind of dissolve at the airport as your husband Jorge was sent back to Mexico. And very strange for me to say sent back because he hasn't been there in ages.
Yes, he hasn't been there since he was 10 years old. He's 39 years old, so it's something strange for him to a country he does not know. The dynamics he does not know, the money is totally different than our U.S. money. Mm-hmm. So he's a foreigner to his own country.
He did, fortunately, I guess, have a family member. He's living with an aunt, correct?
Yes.
But it's someone he doesn't know.
It's this total stranger because he hasn't seen her since he was 10 years old.
You're still digesting all of this, I know. This wasn't that long ago, but try to explain a little bit about what this has been like for you and your two children.
Since, I would say, that day that he was ripped apart from us on January 15th, it's been a living nightmare. And it's hard to actually describe what we're feeling, except it's like a death. Because we're grieving, but we never got a chance to bury the body. The body's still walking around in a different country. So it's devastating to know that your loved one is still alive somewhere, but you can't hug him, you can't touch him, you can't feel his warmth. And it's very, very hard. I said it takes a toll on the children and myself because we're U.S. citizens and we think that we were done unjustly. We understand the president's policy regarding his border, his walls, and I as a U.S. citizen understand that we need to be protected from terrorists. I'm all for that, but he said terrorists, he said criminals. What happened to my husband when he is a good, abiding citizen when he was here, broke no laws? So what happened to our pathway to citizenship, our DACA? What happened to that in our family?
In fact, if the DACA law were to be changed, it probably would be difficult for it to affect him because he's now no longer here.
exactly, he would not be able to qualify for something.
Your case has gotten so much attention. You've been to New York to be on The View, the Washington Post, lots of newspapers. So you really have gotten a lot of people bringing you their support. I know you've seen that on social media, and yet no one is really bringing you help. There really doesn't seem to be an answer for you, does there?
No, unfortunately, there is no answer, because they're saying now we have to file the paperwork. What should have been filed a long time ago, he should have left, and now we have to do the right thing, as they say. And I'm like, the right thing was leaving him here with his family and letting him have a pathway to citizenship here in the United States, not to a country he does not know. But now we have to file a waiver and get with the Mexican consulate and hope in return they do not give him a ban, because then it's going to make our situation even worse.
I don't want to presume that everyone fully understands Jorge's story. He was brought here illegally at 9 or 10 years of age by an aunt and uncle. They have since become legal citizens, but he didn't.
No, we were never given the opportunity to do that. When we tried in 2005 to do that, we went to the lawyer, gave her money, filled out the paperwork that she wanted. We did not hear from anybody for 4 years. And when we did hear from somebody, it was an immigration judge that we were being in front of. And the stuff he was saying, what we were saying, and what the lawyer was saying, none of it was matching up, because she put different words into our mouths in the paperwork. And when I showed the judge our paperwork, he said, this doesn't match. I said, of course not, because what she has and what we have, it's two different things.
And in fact, not only, along with getting some poor legal help, I think you also believe that you helped doom your own cause by getting into the system. By trying to become legal, it meant that you had kind of put yourself officially as he was here illegally. And if you hadn't done that, then like many others, he perhaps could have stayed illegally, albeit against the law.
That's the problem, that once you try to become legal and something happens with your case, then you're put into the system, and at any time they can deport you back to your country of origin, no matter what nationality you are.
I suppose there are those who would say, look, like it or not, he was here illegally. I don't think you would dispute that part of what's happened here. And that if we allow everybody who's here illegally to stay, then we're just clearing the path. We're almost encouraging more illegal behavior. And to that, what would you say?
I would say we need a path to citizenship with the people who are already here, who have already signed up for DACA. The Dreamers need a path to citizenship because they were brought here as children and now they're adults, like my husband. And if you have not committed any type of crime, like the president says, then you should be allowed here to stay. And every case should be looked at individually, not as a whole, because my husband was grouped into this whole. He did nothing wrong, so he fell through the cracks. And now we're being punished for that reason, and we don't believe that that was fair.
No matter how you feel about immigration, I think you'd have to be pretty heartless not to have felt the agony and appreciated what you're going through in the video. I'm curious as to how the two children are doing right now.
That day,
a son and a daughter.
My son was in shock, as everybody has said in the video, because he's just standing there, not moving, no emotion. I don't think he really knew what was happening.
Yeah.
It's like he knew, but he didn't know. And as for my daughter, me and her broke down because it was heartbreaking knowing that immigration was going to take him away from us. And he ended up breaking down on the way home. But even now, when we try to talk to him about it, he will not speak about it. It's very hard because he shuts down. And we need to get that out because it's not good for anybody to hold in. We don't know if it's anger or sadness, but he needs to let it out. And we told him, I said, you can scream, you can shout, you can punch a wall, let it out because it's unfair to you.
You've also had trouble sort of being in communication with him because not only does his aunt not have Wi-Fi, but they sort of live in the mountains outside Mexico City, which has made communication tough, hasn't it?
Very tough. We're lucky if we get to speak to him twice a day for 5 minutes at a time because the Wi-Fi there's none there. The mountains make it horrible. We've tried to get a gadget to get him to help him the hotspot. It doesn't help at all.
Yeah. You've also had a really interesting, as I mentioned, all the support that you've seen on Facebook. You've also had, I guess what you'd say, a fairly strong troll presence of those who are anti-immigration folks who are just really trying to sort of coming at you very harshly. How are you dealing with that?
We try to ignore them because if you read everything on there on Facebook, you can get sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
I said, and it's not a good thing for me and my kids to be reading, but what I tried to get the message out to them, you need to read the whole story. You need to educate yourself about the immigration policy. It's not that if you marry an American citizen, you automatically become, I said, into this country. That is not true. That is myths. So educate yourself before you speak about a subject, because you're only hurting my children. I said, and they don't need any more stress than what they already have on them. So please educate yourselves, learn about the immigration policies, and if you really want to learn, get in touch with me. Come live with me, because I can guarantee you, you won't last a week. And if I take you down to Southwest Detroit with an undocumented family, you won't last a day, because the life is rough. And I understand that maybe you don't know the system and you don't understand the dynamics of it, but feel of it as a human being, not as a law. Look at it as a human being. How would you like it if I came into your house and ripped your family apart and told you this is how it's going to be and that's that? And you have to settle for it because that's the law. I don't think anybody would like that.
As you head to Washington this week, I'm not sure you really know quite what to expect from a State of the Union experience, but you will have the chance to talk to some people. What are you going to say?
That us as American citizens need to speak up for the 11 million that are undocumented, to find a way for citizenship for the dreamers, because they were brought here as children and they're already living the American dream. Some of them don't speak Spanish or whatever their language is, so sending them back to their country of origin is only going to harm them. Some of them are already trying to get to Yale, to Harvard, to become doctors and lawyers. I said, they're being cut off of that opportunity because they're not U.S. citizens, but yet they have the education to prove it. I said, and that's what people need to look at. Not everybody is a criminal. I said, they're going to the right path. They're doing the right thing.
Cindy, I know it's been a whirlwind for you for these couple of weeks. I really appreciate you coming in and spending time with us. Good luck on your trip to Washington, and good luck with you and your family. We'll be thinking about you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet. We'll continue. We'll talk about new answers in mobility in the Mobility City. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. All right, welcome back. Last week, at a meeting of the Big Four, it became clear that we don't have a consensus way forward on a transit plan for Southeast Michigan. It failed at the ballot the last time around. Couldn't have helped the Amazon bid. So what now? Well, many have asked if the talk about buses and streetcars is forward-thinking enough for a region that should be leading the world in mobility solutions. Well, let's talk about that with Edwin Olson, the CEO of May Mobility, and Carrie Morton, the Deputy Director of M-City, two people who know a lot about where we are on the mobility curve. Thank you both for being here this morning. And I want to start with you, because you and I, in fact, this sort of gelled with a conversation I had with you over at Kobo last week, standing in front of your minibus, which, to the surprise, I'm sure, of many people that you've talked to, they had no idea that this hasn't just been out on test courses. This has been making it, last fall was making its way around the streets of Detroit.
That's right. Yeah, last October, we had a fleet of these vehicles riding a real route in downtown Detroit with public traffic, with pedestrians, the whole works.
The whole works except for a driver. No driver, no steering wheel.
That's right.
How'd it go?
It went really well. So one of the main things that we wanted to get out of the pilot was to understand how are people going to react to the vehicles.
Yeah.
And so we carried 200 people, about 150 kilometers. But the interesting thing about it, from my perspective, was that it was not just 200 people who had opted in and signed a release waiver. These were 200 regular people going about their ordinary lives that were getting into a vehicle, autonomous vehicle, without really any warning.
They were expecting the usual bus to show up, and that's not what arrived.
That's right.
Which is a really good thing, because you're right, you don't have just the people who are early adopters. Gary, you're about to start a similar program at U of M where you'll be taking real live breathing students, same kind of thing, nobody necessarily opting in, but they'll be getting onto an autonomous vehicle.
That's right. And so for us, it's about understanding how consumers adapt to this technology and how how their trust might change over time as they gain exposure to the technology, and not just the passengers, but the other road users, bicyclists, sharing the roadway with these vehicles. So it's our hope over the next year to really gain knowledge of that environment.
I want you both to address what we still don't know yet. What is keeping us from making this next leap? And Carrie, I know you think part of it is because the measurables. It's really hard for us to prove how effective all this is yet.
That's right. So annually in the U.S., tragically, 40,000 people lose their lives in traffic accidents. But on the converse, that equates to 1 fatality per 100 million miles. So humans are actually pretty good at driving. So proving that these vehicles can operate in all conditions and be as safe or safer than a human is a huge challenge.
Because to duplicate the statistic you just mentioned, if you're talking about 100 million miles, if we're waiting for that, we're going to be waiting a long time.
Driving to Saturn and back.
Yeah. And what are the biggest obstacles that you're seeing, Ed, as far as is the technology there to roll this out, or are we still missing pieces?
I think it's a mixed bag. So this validation problem really points to the challenge that taking on an entire city at once for today's technology is maybe too heavy a lift. And so our approach has really been to find smaller, simpler routes that we can really exhaustively test, that we can understand how the traffic and the pedestrians behave, and really build a system that we feel confident can work on the scale of a few square miles at a time. Yeah. Now,
I think a lot of people are fearing this day coming when they're sitting in a pod in their that comes to their garage, or this sort of idea of home ownership of an autonomous vehicle. My hunch is we're almost certainly heading to mass transit in an autonomous way first, right?
I think so.
Makes more sense for one thing.
The vehicles are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
They are, for the moment, quite fragile. So they need a lot of care and feeding. So cameras need to be recalibrated, the software needs to be refreshed. These are not the sorts of vehicles that we're going to sell to individual car owners. It really requires an infrastructure with fleet management and technicians on site to make sure that those vehicles are operating at the level that they need to be operating.
And in fact, Carrie, as you roll out your plan, there will be somebody on board.
That's right. We'll have a conductor on board to oversee the operation, facilitate access for the users. It'll be some time before we would feel comfortable removing that conductor.
So then how far, I'm curious as to when you both, you both spent more time dreaming about this than most of us, what's the realistic outlook? How far away are we from this point in the future?
I think we're here in some regards, in some small geofenced areas. Ed has already proven that in Detroit, and we're so excited to have homegrown talent deploying here on the streets of Detroit. But I think it'll be a progression. Our personally owned vehicles are going to see increasing levels of automation in our garage already until one point much, much further in the future where it might be ubiquitous.
I think that's right. Yeah. At the other, today there are things that we can do and that we can do with high confidence. At the other end of the spectrum, before we're ready to sell individual car owners cars without steering wheels, where the car has to do everything a human driver could conceivably do, that's not even on the roadmap. That's decades away.
Yeah, because there's been a little bit of panic over that, but this will be baby steps. But I'm curious as to whether you think that this is should be a part of the conversation that we're having right now. Is it been in the mix enough as we talk about trying to find a transit plan for the future? Because when you're building a transit plan, we're not building it for next month.
Right.
We are trying to build something that's going to be years down the line. And these aren't the things that have been a part of the conversation so far, I don't think.
I agree completely. There are places where you can fill a bus with 60 people, and that is incredibly efficient. But there are also a lot of situations where that bus isn't a good fit for the transportation problem at hand. And basically, it's when you can't fill the bus. That could be off hours where there's just not enough people, or at the edges of the main trunks where you don't have the ridership demands. And so there you really have to ask yourself, how are we going to provide access, safe transportation, and at the same time, how are we going to drive commerce? The lack of transportation is really going to put the brakes on commerce as well. Yeah. And so smaller vehicles that are right-sized for those transportation problems, I think can be a huge win for for the municipality and everyone who lives there.
And the other thing, Carrie, as we've pointed out on this program many times, innovation tends to run ahead of regulation. Trying to get the regulatory world, the government world, where you are, is a really tricky trick.
That's right. So, one of the areas we look at MCity are the legal liability and insurance frameworks that would be necessary to see these move forward. And one of the big barriers would be a patchwork of regulations across the state. So, seeing some of the legislation on the Hill that would provide a framework, a national framework, would be the next step forward.
And it's a great ethical exercise. If these things are truly going to run on the system, who should be insuring them? Who should be paying for that? How does that structure going to work?
Well, I think there are many options out there, but I think that there are definitely going to be new products developed. We may see more product liability insurance, for example. But I think so far we see that it'll continue to be a mix of products.
Yeah. And lastly, what I wanted to get to was where we are on the ethical implications that you have to try and somehow build into the software. It's described in a lot of different ways, but the child chasing the ball and the vehicle's choice may have to be an ethical one of, do I hit this or do I hit that? Where are we on that deep dive of the technology?
So it's an interesting thought puzzle. But I think the reality is, as we build our autonomous cars, we're trying to avoid the car ever finding itself in a position like that in the first place. The difference between a good driver and a safe driver is that long before a dangerous event took place, the good driver started slowing down such that the dangerous scenario never arose in the first place. And so when we think about building autonomous cars, that's how we're approaching this. How do we prevent ourselves from getting into those spaces in the first place? If we do find ourselves in a pickle, the car is really an eternal optimist. The car is trying to figure out how to get as far down the road as possible without a cataclysm, because it might always turn out to be wrong. The train might not be going for the switch, right? And so the longer you can hold off something that you know is bad, the more likely it's going to turn out that you were wrong about this hypothetical scenario in the first place.
And yet, well, in fact, in your trial run, you had to deal with a skateboarder once, and the bus only knew to just stop. It didn't know how to predict what the skateboarder was going to do.
That's right. We had a skateboarder come at about 20 miles an hour diagonally across an intersection, cutting across 4 lanes of traffic, which did not resemble any of the motions that cars are supposed to take. And so at the end of the day, the car did just have to stop.
Yeah, fascinating. You can see Ed's vehicle, by the way, on this last day of the auto show over at Cobo to give you an idea of what we're looking at. Thank you both so much for being here. Really appreciate it. We'll wrap things up for Flashpoint right after this. Just enough time to remind you to be with us next Sunday, which will be Super Sunday here on Local 4. An exciting day as we count down toward the big game between the Patriots and the Eagles, which you'll see right here on Local 4. Have a great week. Meet the Press coming up next, right after Mitch Albom's Heart of Detroit. We'll see you next time on Flashpoint.